parents send me videos of their kids doing mitts. What are they doing wrong? What advice would you give?
Yeah.
And first of all, I don't want to see these pity-pat mitt videos because that doesn't show me anything. It looks fancy and everything. Your kid is not Floyd Mayweather, you know. Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia and Floyd Mayweather hit the mitts that way with that, you know, fast speed and fancy pad work. But that's because they're already established fighters who know what they're doing, you know. And I think because of social media and Instagram and just all of that now, it just seems like every kid is being taught to they're not being taught the fundamentals first. They're just being taught fast pad work with 20 punch combinations that mean absolutely nothing because, like I said, their head is sticking up in the air, their arms are sticking out, their footwork is bad, their stance is bad. With my nephew, since he's my nephew and I care about him learning things the proper way.
Yeah.
He started boxing when he was 4 and he just turned 6. How little he is, you know, he still can't even like pronounce words correctly because he's just such a baby. But he loves boxing, loves training, and he plays 4 different sports right now, but boxing is like his absolute favorite. I teach him the fundamentals first because I started when I was 8 and I started competing when I was 8 too. So he still has time before he starts competing. He has a couple of years left, and I want him to just get down the basic fundamentals of footwork first because the punches are going to come easy. That's the easiest thing. I want him to understand the footwork, have a good stance, and being able to just throw his basic punches with good technique and just most of all the footwork because that's the most important thing. Like for him to understand. Like little kids that age don't, I mean, I see it all the time in gyms, whether they're sparring or fighting in an amateur fight. They are throwing all these punches, but they don't understand where they are in the ring. They don't understand why they're throwing a punch, where they should be when they're throwing the punch, how to throw the punch. And I had that natural footwork that you didn't have to really teach me because I was just born with that natural movement. And understanding,
yeah,
you know,
just came to you naturally.
It just came to me naturally. But I wasn't taught the structure of the footwork until I was like 15, 16. So imagine if I would have learned that at 8 years old when I first started, that would have been great. But now that I'm able to teach him, I want him to just have fun with it, but just remember that footwork. That's the most important thing. That's like something that he's reminded of every single day. And like he can have fun with his punches and throwing, you know, whatever punches he wants. But the first thing to work on and to constantly remind him about is his footwork, is his stance. Looking at amateur boxing now and boxing, like the talent in general coming out of amateur boxing is just not what it was when I was a kid. Every kid, whether you're a boy or a girl, it just seems like everyone is trained by their father now. Like that's what's messing up and ruining amateur boxing, in my opinion. I think there's just so many fathers who never put on the gloves before in their lives, probably never even grew up watching much boxing. They don't know how to coach and train a fighter, but yet they're stepping in the position of being their kid's trainer. It's like I just can't believe
what
how
makes them think
often
they know best. Like that's
because
crazy.
they're it seems like with social media and Instagram, like every parent wants to like be that trainer to their kid, wants to be in the spotlight, wants to, you know, be the one
all up in the video,
like Diddy. So it's that's actually ruining boxing. It's ruining amateur boxing. Like it's unbelievable to me how many parents are in the corner with their kid. It's like you leave that to boxing trainers. Like you're not. A lot of them aren't capable of coaching their kid. And teaching them the whole structure of fighting and the whole structure and basics of starting from the beginning and all the little things that it takes to become a good fighter, like the footwork and like understanding all of that and technique and things like that. So that really bothers me, and I know for a fact that's one of the things that are one of the reasons why amateur boxing has just, the talent just seems to not be what it used to be. He's only 6 years old right now, so I want him to just keep falling in love with it. And once he hits a certain age where like he's mature enough to understand everything that I'm telling him now at 6 years old, he's gonna hit an age. There's gonna be a year where he's just gonna, bam, everything's just gonna click, and he's gonna be able to do these things on his own without me having to continue to remind him. But right now he's so little that I have to just continue to keep reminding him, and that's what a lot of these coach parents don't really do, is like taking the time to correct every single mistake and keep reminding a kid of what they're doing wrong.
I think the problem is that a lot of the best fighters don't have parents. So like that's what's missing, because now it's like,
I mean,
so like you said, social media is making it so popular, and Jake Paul is making it so popular. So like all these people want to be in boxing now, and it's great. But like what made it great was that they really were like, you know, they didn't have anybody. They came from the street.
When I first got into boxing, his first instinct and thought wasn't, oh, I'm going to train my daughter.
No, he stepped aside. I was going to say that.
He didn't know anything. Yeah. And when Ronnie asked him if he can take over and train me, my dad was just like, I don't know anything about how to coach a kid in boxing. Yeah. But he had so much knowledge from watching boxing and Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard being his favorite fighters, and always watching boxing growing up. Bruce Lee being one of his favorite fighters as well. And from him, street fighting, fighting in prison. He would box. He boxed in prison, and he had hundreds and hundreds of street fights. So I think coaching wise, like when my brothers were in T-ball and Little League, he coached the team, and they were a very successful, good team. And I think he just had that natural coaching ability. So that carried into boxing. So he kind of, when I was little, he kind of like put that like toughness of like street fighting mentality that he had into me and like the whole team of kids that he trained, and it worked. Yeah. It's because he had that experience from fighting, whether it was in prison, in the streets, growing up watching boxing all the time. So that was the difference with him, which is why he was able to create champions.
Did you ever see him fight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen him street fight. Not scary because scary because he's freaking scary when he fights.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like, yeah. I picture like his eyes go black or something.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So in the gym one day.
That's how you get too, like when you were fighting. Like,
yeah. We're in the gym one day. I was like 9 or 10. And this like cholo kid comes in. It's like we're in the youth center. So basketball court is wide open. Kids are playing basketball, and then the gym is like on this kind of like a stage. So we're training, training normal day, and this like little cholo kid comes in, and one of the kids that he boxes and he plays on the basketball team was talking to this like cholo's girlfriend. Just a normal conversation. The kid was only 13 years old, and he's like, "Hey, you're talking to my girl," and the kid was just like, "No, like we're just talking." You know,
13.
Yeah, he's 13, and like the cholo just boom hits him with the right hand and drops him on the ground. And my dad was like, "Hey, motherfucker!" And then the guy was like, "What? What's up, old man? You want some too?" And my dad was like, "Oh hell no!" So he goes up the steps of the stage to get to where the boxing area was. When my dad started fighting, he pushes my dad back and slams him on the big glass mirrors. The glass mirrors shatter, falls to the floor, and then my dad like punches him a couple of times in the face, and then the guy gets a broomstick, picks it up, cracks it over my dad's head. What? But my dad like has his arms crossed like this to cover his face, and the broomstick cracks on his arm. My dad still has a scar from it on his wrist area. Scariest fight.
And what were you doing?
Scary. We were just like, we all had our gloves on, and me and Frankie just looked at each other, and we were just like, oh my god, like we were scared for my dad, because like we thought he was gonna pull out a gun, because that's like the kind of guy he was in that area in Boyle Heights. So, fight ended. The guy leaves, and we're telling my dad, what are we gonna do? Like, we have to leave because he's gonna come back, like, and with a gun. And my dad was like, yeah, you know, he probably will. So then, they locked the gym and kept us in there for a few hours, hoping that, you know, if he came back, maybe he would leave. So we ended up sneaking through the side door, all getting into the car, and leaving. The guy didn't come back, but the next day, we were all outside at Allen B's waiting, and here comes the cholo on his little bike coming towards us, and then me and Frankie and the whole team look at each other, and we're like, Joe, like he's coming back, and then he pulls up to my dad, and we're like, oh my God, like he's gonna start again. My dad like went up to him and was like, what's up? And then he's like, you're not done yet? And then the guy was like, nah, man, I just want to say, you know, I'm sorry, my bad. You know, I didn't know who you were. That guy, wherever he was from in Boyle Heights, went back and told his friends what had happened. And they were like, yeah, you're messing with Joe? So, like, apparently, like, this guy knew all the same people, the older guys from the neighborhood that knew my dad. And they were like, you better go back and apologize. Like, don't ever disrespect him. Damn. So he goes back, like, I'm sorry, man. Like, I'm sorry, homie. Like, I didn't know who you were. No one ever messed with any of the kids at the gym.
That's good, yeah. That's crazy.
That's actually that's in the first chapter of my book, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was lit.